One of our biggest expenses as full-time travelers is getting from one destination to another. And if we make any big mistakes, that can really destroy our travel budget.
In this video, we're going to share everything we learned about these transportation gotchas so we can help you save money.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
When we're booking travel, we have to be really careful about all of the hidden costs. We do a lot of research before we book travel going from one place to another.
We actually have two categories of travel. One is called travel, which is basically, as Judy said, one place to another. Another one's called local transportation, which means metro, taxis, everything else that we do just to get around town. Let's start by talking about repositioning cruises versus just regular cruises. The pitch is with a repositioning cruise that you're saving money, the costs are going to be lower because the ships are actually just repositioning or resetting to go on another cruise. So you're taking the trip back, which has more time on the ship and less time on tours and events that are going on during the travel process. It's supposed to be cheaper, but that's on the surface, and there are some gotchas here.
If you're not in a hurry, you can end up combining transportation with food, accommodations, and save yourself an expensive transatlantic or long-haul flight.
Seems like a deal. It seems like you're getting everything wrapped up in what you would normally pay for those same days when you're flying and renting a hotel room or any other kind of lodging. So that all sounded really good to us. So we actually did do some deep dives into it. And Judy found some prices that seemed really good, but they didn't quite end up that way.
So I finally found a deal that looked good on paper. It was from Lisbon to Buenos Aires, and it was $859 per person, so about $1,800. I called a recommended person to get details about it, and it turned out that it was going to cost over $2,400 once you factored in port fees and government charges. Now that's not including Wi-Fi, which is something that we really need, tips, which would probably be at $20 a day, closer to almost $900, $800-ish. Plus, if you wanted to eat at any special restaurants, or if you wanted any sort of extra drinks, not even saying you wanted a drinks package. So this thing that sounded like pretty reasonable turned out to be not so reasonable at all. Now, I'm not saying that you can't find a deal, but we have been looking steadily for the last year and a half, and we really haven't seen anything that is cheap enough to really be worth our while.
Now, this gotcha for things like internet access is huge for us. We do a lot of work on the days that we're just sitting around and not touring. And when you're on a boat, you're doing a lot of sitting around not touring. And if they're going to charge us $500 or more for just basic internet access.
For one person.
For one person. And then more than that, if you actually want to do any kind of streaming or VPN service, you know, if it's $900 for one person and then you double that, well, where's all the savings gone? We can't do this. We can't be in this kind of situation where we have no access to the internet. And it takes away all the advantage of, hey, we got some downtime. We could actually get some work done. Nope. So big gotcha for us. It just doesn't work. So let's talk about airlines. We generally book flights as economy, sometimes even basic economy.
For the occasional long-haul flight, we may upgrade our seats into premium economy. Sometimes we'll just use points to get economy seats, and then we'll use cash to upgrade them. But flights are full of hidden costs, especially on discount airlines. And sometimes when you're traveling internationally, that's all you can get. We've got an upcoming video where we walk you through how exactly we find and book flights, so subscribe if you're not already.
One of the first places that hidden costs lie is in seat assignments. It used to be that we'd book a flight and you could get upgraded seats or just take the free seats, but you could still pick your own seats. Now, often, you don't get to pick your seats if they're free. You have to let the airline do it, which we really don't trust. And if you want to get a good seat, you're going to pay a premium amount of money. And then the basic seats still cost some money. And these economy airlines that Judy was talking about, they really get you with those seats because their initial prices look so low. Then you go in and book your seats and go, well, there goes all our savings. Poof.
Now, it's not always cheaper, but I typically book a middle seat because I'm short, so it doesn't really matter to us. But sometimes both seats, no matter where you're located, are expensive.
So let's talk about those baggage fees. They've gotten ridiculous. It used to be that one or the other was free. Either you could carry on for free or you could check luggage for free. You just had to pay for one or the other. Then airlines started looking at, well, it takes longer for people to board the plane if they have luggage that they're carrying on. So we're going to charge them more money for that. That way we don't get binged if we're late pushing away from the gate. So now carry-on luggage is expensive and checked luggage is sometimes cheaper. And on certain flights that we've had recently, both were expensive. I didn't have an option to get one or the other. We lowered the weight of our luggage so that we could carry it on more often, and then they start charging for everything. So this gotcha has really hurt us.
Now, most airlines will allow you to still bring a personal item on as long as it fits under the seat in front of you. But some of those have a weight restriction as well. Nobody's stopped us yet, but we saw something that had a 3-kilogram limit of whatever that personal item is.
Yeah, now our backpacks are not light. We've got a lot of stuff in them, especially mine with all the camera gear. And they look at it all the time. What are you taking on with you? And we'll turn around and show our backpacks. But we're not handing them over.
Yeah, we're not allowing them to weigh them if we can help it. And we try not to put them in a sizer. They fit under the seat in front of us, but we don't need to create more drama than we need to.
Yeah, and they never go in the overhead. If we're taking those on as personal items, we keep them under the seats. That's just one of our personal rules.
Now, of course, we try to get our boarding passes early whenever we can. But sometimes when you're traveling internationally, they require you to go to the check-in counter first. And that can be really tricky. If you are required to weigh your bag and you haven't already paid to have a checked bag, it will cost you more than if you had booked it online in advance.
Because of these added baggage fees and the seat reservation costs that are so high, we are very wary of taking flights that are more than a direct flight. If it's 2 legs, we might be paying baggage fees for both of those legs and definitely paying for seats on both of those. Now, if it's even worse, it's 2 stops. That means we might be saving a lot of money on that flight. It looks really good when I'm looking it up and say, wow, that's a cheap flight. We can put up with 36 hours. That won't be too bad. And then I start adding up the seats and the baggage for each of those legs. So it's a huge gotcha. You can't just look at the website and say, oh, this flight's cheaper than that one, because it's obviously trading off this cheaper money for a longer time. There's gotchas there. There's lots of them.
We also don't use self-transfer flights. Sometimes it turns out that you have to go clear across town to get to a different airport, or you're really at the mercy of a plane arriving on time in order to catch another plane. And if one of those flights gets canceled, that can really mess up all of your travel plans.
It's a big gotcha. You got to be careful of that. It looks good. Whenever they look good, keep looking. One of the things that we didn't realize we'd have to do is research on an airline. Now, we've flown a lot of airlines through Southeast Asia, and they were very small, horrible websites, other things that were a problem, but they got us there. We got on the flights, maybe it was a long line, but the problem wasn't so severe as canceled flights. And we had that in Argentina. Flybondi kind of messed with us. The first cancellation was a strike. Okay, we understand that. The next one had no reason at all. They just decided to cancel the flight. And they didn't tell us. It's not like they contacted us with email or anything else. We just happened to walk up and check on a flight. It's like, why is this showing canceled on board? They're like, oh yeah, it's canceled. It's like, I'm sorry. What?
And it wasn't because of weather, and it wasn't because of mechanical issues. Flybondi just has a really bad reputation for canceling flights. In fact, the one weekend, 12,000 people were stranded, and we were 2 of them. Yeah. Argentina has warned them that if they don't do something about their canceled flights, they're going to start imposing fines. Now, why that hasn't happened sooner, I don't know. But there is no worse airline that we've encountered that's been as problematic as Flybondi. Looks good, looks cheap, not worth it.
But we'd love to hear your horror stories. Let us know in the comments what airline has caused you trouble.
Especially if there's one that you know that you would never book again.
We are a big fan of trains. One reason is even when a train takes longer to get from point to point than a flight, you have to factor in the other things you have to go through for an airport. You get to a train station, basically, you can arrive 10 minutes before a train, walk on the train, sit down, and go. With an airline, that's not going to happen. Depends on how crowded the airport is, but sometimes you have to be there 3 hours early for an international flight. And you have to get through security. If security's backed up, now you're backed up. All these hassles to get through, take your shoes off, empty your water bottles, get your computer out. All these frustrations don't exist with trains, and I just love it. I love the ability to walk up, get on, travel, and usually the seats are bigger, usually there's more room, and I like walking around. I don't know. For me, trains are such a huge win.
We can travel pretty affordably in Italy, but we noticed that prices in France can be a lot more expensive. And also, when we were traveling in Switzerland, we found a few gotchas. Number one, you have to book seat assignments and you have to book the reservation for the actual train. So there's two different charges that you have to be aware of. And if you're not, that can get you into trouble.
Yeah, like we did. We goofed it up twice.
The Glacier Express is actually a pretty cool train, and we have a video if you're interested in watching it with a bunch of tips that I think will be useful for you.
Taking the Glacier Express is not a cost-saving tip, but it's cool. Watch our other video.
We like trains because you don't have to worry about baggage fees or seat assignments, although occasionally we will splurge and get a first class seat on trains. But you want to check to find out what the benefits are. Sometimes it's just giving you a little bit of a bigger seat and a little bit more quiet.
Business class or first class is a small upcharge compared to flights where we would never be able to afford business class. It's just not going to happen. On a train, it's like, oh, it's 10 more euro? Fine, let's throw that in there.
And sometimes they come with a free beverage and also some sort of snack or meal.
Now, one of the gotchas you have to worry about with trains is baggage issues. Some trains that are smaller, like the regional trains in Italy, we found that the overhead compartment is really just a small little railing up there that may hold a tiny backpack or your jacket, not much else. So it's really not meant for even our small carry-on bags. And those same trains might not have spaces at the end of the cars for putting your carry-on bags or bigger luggage. So you have to know that, because we've traveled on trains in Italy where the baggage was with us in the seat. And it's not horrible, but if you don't know that ahead of time and you've got a lot of luggage, you're going to be in big trouble.
In Japan, on some of the bullet trains, you may actually have to upgrade your seat to a seat reservation versus just a coach ticket because you have big luggage. And there's no guarantee that other people aren't going to still be using that space that you're paying extra to use. Our daughter was one of those people who needed to have a reserved seat in Japan. And if you're somebody who comes with a large luggage, we have an article on our website you might want to read.
Lastly, don't assume that trains are cheaper than flights. They often are, but there's occasions where the train can be more expensive, take longer, and be more of a hassle because you just don't have 18 hours to sit and getting from place to place. And a flight might be just 100 euro and you're there. So look at everything, do your research, and make sure that you're happy with the time and money that you'll be spending.
We use buses more as local transportation when we're inside a city, but we have occasionally used them trying to get from one city to another.
For example, in Cyprus, we had to fly into Larnaca because our flight to Paphos was canceled. And we said, well, what are we going to do? Well, there's a bus that goes from Larnaca all the way to Paphos. So we got on that. And it turned out it was pretty good. The seats were comfortable. The only gotcha was the signage at Larnaca was confusing. It's like, do we stand here? Do we go inside and buy the tickets here? It was kind of fuzzy. It's like, why isn't this clear? Why is this so hard for us? We've traveled a lot. And this is a little bit of a weird situation.
I think sometimes buses don't give the most clear instructions on how to use them.
Yeah, and also getting off that bus. We weren't really sure which stop. I mean, the Paphos route was pretty circuitous, and it looked like we were close to where we were supposed to get off a couple times. We're watching on the phone going, I think we're almost there. No, we're going around here. So buses tend to be just a little more confusing, a little bit more convoluted, but often they can save you money. So if you're up for it, it's a good deal. One other gotcha to be aware of for buses, there may not be a bathroom on the bus. Or there may be just one and it may not be working. At least on trains, you have multiple cars and they usually have multiple bathrooms. So you have options if something's going wrong there. On a bus, you may have to wait till they make a stop and then get off. do your bathroom duties and get back on the bus.
And don't forget about the other gotcha, which is that you are in traffic, same as everybody else. So it could mean that your bus is very late to arrive at the bus stop, but it also may mean that you are extra late to your destination. So you have to give yourself a good amount of time for those delays.
Yeah, trains can have delays too, but buses have to share with everybody else, like Judy said, so could be bad.
So we've not really been lucky enough to use a ferry to get from one place to another, but this time we did.
Yeah, we've taken small ferries. In fact, we had a train on a ferry one time in Italy. That was very cool. But most of the time we're using ferries just to get to sites or islands. This time we actually went from Buenos Aires to Colonia de Sacramento in Uruguay via ferry. And it turned out to be a really nice experience overall because the ferry is very big and comfortable. It was not the cheapest way to go in some respects because the tickets, for one thing, were tricky to buy.
One problem with that was we were flying from Iguazu Falls into Buenos Aires, and we didn't trust that our flight was going to arrive on time, so we didn't pre-purchase our ferry tickets, which meant a few things. First of all, it meant that we had to pay more than we would normally because it was a last-minute ticket. And secondly, we actually couldn't buy them at all online because they had only a few left. So that was a little bit scary for us. And then they were in a foreign language and they didn't want to accept our credit card. It was a bunch of different problems. So finally, we went to the actual station, hoped we could get tickets. Fortunately, we could, but they had us going hither and yon to try to get these tickets, which were $40 more per person because they were last minute seats. So just to take a ferry cost us $177 US, which I thought was pretty expensive.
Yeah. And some people have said that they bought them well in advance. If we could have, we would have, but given what we had with our airline problems in Argentina so far, we just didn't trust it.
The other gotcha is that ferries run seasonally. Yeah. So there are occasions where you just can't get one. Either you're in the wrong season or they only operate on certain days, or in some places, if they don't run in bad weather. Yeah. So there's a lot of situations that can go wrong. I was actually surprised at how many ferries go between countries. So we've pulled together a long list that might be useful for you. So I'll admit to not knowing this before, but hire cars or rental cars. Now, I thought originally in Cyprus that hire car meant that you were going to hire a driver, but really what it means is you're just going to hire a rental car that you will drive yourself. If you didn't know that, let me know that I'm not alone.
I only know it because the UK, I found that out there. But otherwise, yeah, that didn't sound right to me either at first.
There are so many things that can go wrong when you're renting a car internationally. Adjusting to the other side of the road can be tricky if you're in an area that does that. In some places like the Amalfi Coast, the roads are windy and can be dangerous if you're not familiar with where the danger points are.
And we don't want to have to worry about unfamiliar driving laws or potential language barriers. Needing to have an international driving permit is required in many places, and it can be a lot of effort to pick up one of those.
And you might not understand exactly what the car rental company's policies are in case you're in an accident. And they may not adequately cover you in case something goes wrong. And we also don't want to have to worry about dealing with an accident or damage to a vehicle.
And frankly, we just don't want to have to deal with parking or filling the car with gas. We choose to stay in walkable areas of a city so we don't have to rely on a vehicle.
And if we are wanting to see another part of the city or have a day trip somewhere, we will typically either hire a driver or we'll go ahead and book that as a tour. In fact, we did that in Romania. We had a great time. You can watch that video below.
Let's briefly talk about local transportation. We love public transport in cities. We think they're marvelous, and we take them as often as possible, even from airports if we can. So we're a big fan, but there are some gotchas you have to look out for. And briefly, buses and subways are both wonderful paths to get around a city, but remember that subways may be limited. Your metro system may only have a few stops or 2 or 3 lines, and you won't be able to get everywhere in a city. Where on a bus, it may be a little more confusing about how you get tickets, how you get passes, whatever you need to do in that city, but you may be able to get to more places.
And transit cards can be hard to find. We've had more trouble finding them for buses than we have for subways. And you can really get yourself in trouble if you end up trying to get on a bus or any kind of system and you don't have a ticket. A lot of times there are security or police that get on transportation just to check your tickets to make sure you have something. And there can be big fines if you don't.
Now, some places are fantastic. When we went to Japan, we thought their metro system looked incredibly complex, but after we figured it out, it was beautiful. Everything's on time, quick to get someplace. Tickets were easy to figure out, tap to pay, all this stuff worked wonderfully, but that's not the rule all over the world.
And one of the gotchas there is if you're on a bus in Japan, they often don't let you bring suitcases on because they have a limited amount of room. They may reject you and tell you you need to take either the metro or a taxi.
And if all else fails in a city and we need to get a taxi, we prefer to use ride services. Like when we were in Southeast Asia, Grab was all over the place. We've used Uber in a few places, and when we're in San Francisco, we use Lyft. And those can be really wonderful because you don't need cash. If I can pay up front on my phone and track all that, so much easier, especially when you're leaving an airport, you fly into a city and you can't get cash right away or there's some problem with that, and now you have to pay cash for a taxi, it can be painful. So if a place has a ride system that we can go ahead and use our phone app for, lovely.
There was some place that we were traveling where you actually had to go inside the airport and get some sort of a voucher that made sure to throttle the taxi service so they didn't overcharge you.
So to wrap it up, our advice is to always do your research and don't just buy the first thing you see online that's a low price. There's a lot of hidden costs and you need to be aware of those. And always check alternate transportation. Even though you're used to taking one way of travel, there may be a cheaper or better way to do it. It's worth doing a little bit of homework.
Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Gelato members who help support our channel. We'd love for you to subscribe if you haven't already.
And check out findinggina.com, where you can look at our Gelato membership, our free community forum, our downloads, articles, and much more information.
Until next time.
Until next time.